Today, let's talk about turning your LinkedIn profile from lackluster to leadership energy. As someone who writes LinkedIn profiles professionally for leaders and emerging leaders across all sorts of industries, I want to break down the 9 cliches that I have most noticed are killing your credibility and how you can communicate with confidence instead. Grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. So if, as they say, all the world is a stage, then LinkedIn is the biggest professional one. It is the biggest professional networking platform in the world. So how you communicate on there affects the impressions that you make to your professional network. And this is particularly important if you are looking to land a new job and you really want your LinkedIn profile to be able to add to the credibility that you are bringing to your application, because recruiters are certainly checking social media more than ever. You do not want your LinkedIn profile to get lost in a sea of sameness where everyone is communicating in the same way that you don't actually stand out with the value proposition that you have to offer in the marketplace. The book, The Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett, really highlighted to me this idea of wallpaper. One of his 33 laws for business and life that he shares as a marketing guru is this idea of avoiding being wallpaper at all costs. And what Bartlett is really highlighting through this idea of wallpaper is that because of the overuse of certain terms, phrases, and language, we have been habituated to tune out those phrases. So when you go onto a LinkedIn profile and it is just full of these cliches, then you immediately stop paying attention. They just become empty words and empty promises. So how can you communicate with more impact? Let's break down the cliches to remove from your LinkedIn profile. Number 1 is hardworking. This is one that I still see quite a lot in people's LinkedIn profiles, and it still surprises me to some degree, because while your friends and your family, maybe your parents, might fawn over how hardworking you are, I personally don't feel that LinkedIn is the place for you to be calling yourself hardworking, because it is a professional networking platform. You could probably assume that a lot of people on there would consider themselves hardworking. So you don't actually have to call yourself hardworking. You have to prove that you are hardworking through what it is that you are describing on your LinkedIn profile. How are you not just ticking the box of your job, your 9 to 5, your job description, but actually showing that impact that you have had in roles? What is the outcomes that you have achieved that show that you are accelerating a business in some way, that you are going above and beyond for that organization? And also, how does your professional narrative overall demonstrate that you are hardworking, that you haven't just gone to work every day for a certain amount of years, but you've actually in some way told a professional story that speaks to your work ethic? Number 2 for the cliche to cut from your LinkedIn profile is passionate or passion. And that is because, like hardworking, you should be demonstrating your passion instead. Passion otherwise, or passionate, is an overused word. So you need to showcase that passion through your professional story. For example, again, like hardworking, don't just show that you are ticking the box for your job. Show how you are going above and beyond, particularly outside of your job. For example, are you a part of organizations that show that you have a genuine passion for the industry that you serve? Do you volunteer in community groups? Do you volunteer on committees or boards? Do you volunteer as a mentor, or are you a part of other programs perhaps? How are you showing that you are really passionate about your industry? Are you a speaker? Do you create content in your field to actually communicate a particular message outside of just what you do in your 9 to 5 job? Number 3 for the cliche to cut from your LinkedIn profile is results driven. Does anyone actually do a job hoping to fail? Do we ever go to work hoping to not achieve results? This is something that gets to me when I see results driven, because I feel like anyone who has a job is there to achieve results. That is why someone has hired you to do a job. Or if you work for yourself, that is why your customers pay you or your clients pay you. No one is paying you to openly want to fail. Everyone wants to be results driven. So this is another one where I just don't feel like it needs to be said. You need to actually show the results. You need to communicate the results of what you have achieved. So you might show that through specific numbers that you're able to share on LinkedIn. Maybe you can share it in percentage increases if that's not an option to share monetary value. You can potentially just describe that through the actual outcomes that you have achieved. You can compare the results that you achieved to what the benchmark was and how you exceeded those results. Don't just describe yourself as results driven. Demonstrate how your actions and your outcomes show that you are results driven. The number 4 cliche word to cut from your LinkedIn profile is innovative. And that is because the word innovative is actually a really powerful word, and it implies that you are doing something new, something outside of the norm. And I know that a lot of people like to think that they are innovative and maybe they have introduced or launched lots of new processes and things that they would describe as new. But when we overuse a word like innovative, which a lot of people do, it just becomes hyperbole. It just sounds like an empty promise. So if you are using a word like innovative, you have to be able to back that up with examples. That is why I'm so careful about the clients that I do and don't use the word innovative with. This is something that I really like to reserve for the people that can showcase that they have truly contributed something innovative to their industry, for example. And often this might relate to something like an advancement in technology, or maybe they are in research and they have really contributed to insights that weren't actually available in that space before, or maybe they have developed an entirely new process that just wasn't something that was in their industry or their organization at the time, and it wasn't just the norm in the industry. So when you are using a word like innovative, if you are using a word like innovative, make sure that you can back that up with examples. The number 5 cliche to cut from your LinkedIn profile is strategic thinker. This is something when, as you progress in your career, is going to become more and more an assumed part of your role. If you are climbing that corporate ladder, or if you are running your own business to a degree, people are always going to assume that you are bringing an element of strategic thinking to the role. If you're no longer in those early career positions, they are going to assume that you can be strategic in some way. And to be fair, they start to assume this pretty early as well. So how are you demonstrating through your LinkedIn profile that you are a strategic thinker instead of just using that phrase? For example, how can you showcase the actual strategies that you have been a part of? Describe exactly what those strategies were. For example, were you part of the master planning for your organization, or did you contribute to the 5-year strategic plan in the business? Or at a departmental level, did you help to establish or create the marketing and communication strategy? Or maybe if you break this down into your particular role within a bigger department, then maybe you establish the social media strategy. How can you actually show the strategic thinking that you have actually executed through describing exactly what those strategies were? And bonus point, which I love to see through LinkedIn profiles and even on resumes as well, is when people actually name what the strategy is that they were involved in. They give it that proper name. And that is because usually organizations will come up with really engaging phrases for their strategy. And so it just adds a little bit more of an impact to your LinkedIn profile and creates more of a memorable moment when you can actually describe what that strategy was in this nicely packaged way. The number 6 cliche word to cut from your LinkedIn profile is team player. Instead, demonstrate how you are a team player. One of the ways that I like to do this is to showcase what the stakeholder relationships are that a particular client has. For example, who are the people that they interact with the most? So what is that cross-departmental collaboration that they engage in? So think about this when it comes to your own profile, because it will show that you are a team player. It will demonstrate the processes and the projects that you have contributed to, which is another way that you can showcase that you are a team player. What is the project work that you have been a part of? How can you highlight what the goal of the project team was and how you contributed to that goal specifically? What did you bring to the table and what was the outcome that was achieved? Demonstrate how you have been a part of a team successfully instead of describing yourself as a team player. And there are ways that you can do this outside of your current work as well. So this might be through highlighting the organizations that you are affiliated with. Maybe you are a member of organizations, maybe you are part of committees or programs outside of your current workplace. This showcases that you are able to build relationships and that you have what it takes to be a team player, which every recruiter is looking for, but they want to make sure that they can see that people-orientated evidence instead of just the claim. And number 7 cliche word that I recommend to remove from your LinkedIn profile is details orientated. My issue with the phrase details orientated is that it actually lacks the details usually. So it's just a vague claim that doesn't actually describe how you are actually detail orientated. So what is it that you actually bring a particular investigative or diligent eye to? Describe what part of that particular process is. Instead of just saying that you're details orientated, for example, show that you are details orientated, particularly when it comes to risk management, as an example. What is the part of the process that you can describe that you are particularly focused on? Or how can you be more specific? If the devil is really in the detail, then make sure that you are providing the proof. And instead of using this phrase altogether or finding how you are more specifically detail orientated, this is where I would suggest that you should look at your LinkedIn profile overall and ask yourself if it actually is communicating that you're details orientated. This is about adding details, storytelling details to your professional profile. So if you look at your LinkedIn profile and overall with fresh eyes, you notice that there are just a bunch of vague claims in there. Make sure that you are going through and you are backing up those claims with evidence, that you are providing examples, that you are using the keywords that your industry is looking for. And if you want to learn more about SEO for your LinkedIn profile, then check out my previous episode on that topic, because being details orientated when it comes to the language that you are using on your LinkedIn profile is going to help you to also make sure that you are ranking well when it comes to your LinkedIn presence. But when it comes to demonstrating that you are details orientated on your LinkedIn profile, remember that this isn't necessarily just to say that you should add on a lot of information on your LinkedIn profile, that you should be maxing out every word count that you have available. It is about being detailed orientated in making sure that every word is earning its place on the page. Make sure that you are paying attention to the right words to use instead of making vague claims. And speaking of vague claims, this brings me to number 8 to cut from your LinkedIn profile, and that is visionary. That is because because if you can't back this up, then this is just another grandiose claim. What I find more useful is actually describing how you have contributed to vision. So earlier I mentioned, have you contributed to master plans? Have you been a part of that process? Have you been a part of 5-year strategic plans, for example? Have you established a new direction for an organization or a department? Have you launched new products or services that are quite different for the organization and show that you are forward thinking? How are you actually demonstrating that you have a long-term vision for an organization instead of just calling yourself a visionary? And if you haven't yet been involved in anything that is particularly future focused as a part of your role, then think about what your vision is for your industry. So this is where you have the opportunity to bring a unique perspective to your industry. What is your point of view as to where you would like to see your industry go in the future? What is your vision for 10 years or 20 years in your industry? And how can you be a part of starting to market that movement? This is something that you can do as a part of your personal brand. You can be an advocate for a particular kind of momentum in your industry. And the number 9 cliche to cut from your LinkedIn profile is solutions orientated. Because really, does anyone set out to be a problem maker? No, we all get hired to do a particular job because the person that is paying us wants us to be able to solve a particular problem. And this applies to, I would say, probably every single job that anyone is ever hired for. You are hired to solve a problem. An organization has a problem and you have the skill set required to solve that thing. And that might be in big ways, that might be in small ways, but you are in some way a problem solver. So if you are solutions orientated, what is more useful to communicate on your LinkedIn profile is to take people behind the scenes as to what that solution was and how you actually were able to achieve that. So what was the outcome, but what were the actions that you took to be able to get to that outcome? What was the process that you drive to be able to achieve the particular impact that you have had? Transform your LinkedIn profile from noise to nuance. Cut the cliches to increase your credibility. Thanks so much. For more on personal branding, subscribe for more like this, and I'll see you in the next episode.